In this video, we're going to make a sprite outline shader using shader graph. We're going to have an outline applied to any sprite and be able to customize the thickness and color. Let's begin. Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and this channel is all about helping you learn how to make your own games with in-depth tutorials made by a professional indie game developer. So if you find the video helpful, consider subscribing. Okay, so this is what we're trying to make. Over here is my character, and as you can see there's a nice outline around all of the body parts. I can increase or decrease the thickness of the outline. I can also modify the color, and using bloom and an HDR color I can make it have a very nice glow. So just like that. The whole effect is made in a pretty simple shader, and at the end we're going to take the base effect and expand upon it, and we're going to make a nice outline and animate it through our shader. Alright, so this is our goal, let's get to it. Okay, so here I am in my starting scene. Let's begin by making our shader. So in the project files, right click a new shader, 2D renderer with a sprite-like graph. Let's call this our outline and open it up. Okay, here we are inside of shader graph with our very nice master node. Now the first thing we need is a texture. So up here, create a new texture 2D, call this the main text, and set the reference to _main text. This name has to be exact. This is the default name for the main texture which the sprite renderer uses to apply to the sprite. So here let's select the default and drag it onto the board. Now in here we cannot use the texture directly. So first we're going to add a sample texture node. Here's our texture, and then we can simply pass the RGBA onto there, and there it is. And just make this a quad, and there you go. There's our nice preview. Okay, so let's go up here to save our asset. And now here let's test it out. So over here I have a material. So let's just go up here and change the shader into shader graphs and our outline shader. And there it is, a field for our main text. Let's test. And yep, there's our character currently visible just standing around. Okay, so far so good. Now back in the shader graph, what we're trying to do here is build an outline. So that means we want to essentially expand the sprite sheet body parts. Now your first approach might be to simply scale the texture. So we could do that by creating a tiling and offset node. The tiling is how many times the texture repeats. So for example, with a tiling of 2 on the X, it would repeat the texture twice horizontally. Let's apply it to our UV. So there it is, you can see the texture repeats twice. So we could use this to scale our texture by putting a tiling under 1. So in this, instead of putting 2 or 1, let's put 0.9. And just like this, you can see that the texture is indeed bigger. So put this one at 0.8, this one at 0.8, and there you go. As you can see, the texture is indeed scaling. However, the texture is scaling from the lower left corner. What we want instead is for each body part to scale up from its center and not from a corner of the entire texture. So this approach is not good for what we're trying to make. Instead, how we're going to achieve our outline is by shifting the texture left, right, up, and down. So instead of modifying the tiling field, we're going to play around with the offset field. So set these to 1, okay. And here when I modify the offset, you can see what happens to the texture, it gets shifted to one side. However, we also do not want to modify our original texture. So let's leave this one as normal, get rid of this connection, there it is. And down here, let's make another texture sample using the exact same texture. Okay, so up here we have our original. And now in here, let's have one shifted slightly to the side. So here, if we make the offset a bit big, you can see the exact difference between this one and this one. So we want the second one to be the outline, and then it will be added on top of the original. Okay, so let's grab the alpha from this one and place a subtract node. And we're going to subtract this alpha from this alpha. And just like that, you can see our outline. So now with this, let's define a property for our outline color. So let's go up here and make a new color. Call this the outline color. And let's set it to HDR so we can have a nice glow. And let's put it on green. Okay. So now we can take our color, drag it in here, make a multiply node, and we're going to multiply our color by this alpha. And there it is, there's our outline. And now finally, all we need is to apply this one on top of our texture. So push the master here, and we do a add node, and we add this one on top of that one, and put the output in there. And just like that on the preview, you can see our nice outline on the left side. Let's test this. And yep, there's our character with an outline on the left side. Alright, so now all we need to do is apply this exact same thing to all the other sides. So let's do that. Now over here, we are shifting positively on the X to get an outline on the left side. However, here we are also setting the thickness directly onto this value. So let's make it a property instead of a hard-coded value. So up here, make a new vector1, call this the outline thickness. So we have this nice vector1, so we can drag it in here. However, in here it expects a offset a vector2. So let's simply do a combine node, and we set this onto the R, and we output the RG. So in here it looks a bit confusing because it's using the labels for colors, but this works the same for a simple vector2 or vector4. So in here the R represents the X and the G represents the Y. So we are setting the outline thickness on the X and outputting this one in there, and the output is the same as previously. So if I increase the thickness, there you go, you can see how it shifts more. So this is working, however, it's working with very tiny values, so 0.01. So we can add a nice quality of life improvement in here. Let's make a static vector1 and put it at 0.01. And now before we do our math, let's first multiply this. So we multiply our thickness by this small value, and then we get this output. Now we can go up here into our property and set it from default into a slider, and we're going to make a slider that goes, let's say, from 0 to 3. So just like that, we have 1, can set it to 2, can set it to 3, and so on. This is not an essential step, it just makes the shader easier to use. So we can save the asset and see what this slider looks like. So here's the game running, and we have our shader properties. And here on the thickness, you can see our nice slider, so we can move it up and down. And there you go, you can see the sprite moving to the side, just like that. Okay, so let's go back to making the other sides. So in here we have our texture being shifted to the left side. Now let's shift it down. So we need to essentially duplicate all of this. Except now instead of combining on the R, which is the X, we're going to put on the G, which is the Y. And just like that, you can see that this one is being shifted to the left and this one is being shifted down, and this is the original. So there it is. So afterwards, let's play around with the alpha for both of these. So we simply make a nice add node, and we add this alpha onto this alpha. And you can see in there, both of the alphas, one to the left and one down. So now we use this one on the subtract. Except in here, you can already see an issue. And the issue is that we are adding values past 1. So we need to make sure that we clamp them. So let's shift all this to the side, make a clamp node. And we're going to clamp this output between 0 and 1, and then we use this one in there. And there you go. Now we have our nice outline going to the left and down. And over here on the preview, you can already see our result. Okay, let's test this. And if there it is, we have our character with an outline to the left and going down. And again, we can play around over here with the slider, and you can see the outline increasing and decreasing. And the color, the same thing. We can also modify it if we want. There you go, a nice blue. All right, so far so good. Now let's add the other sides. Okay, here I am. So essentially we're going to duplicate all of this. So we first shift it, then we sample it, and then we add both of them. And now here for the offset, we essentially want the opposite from this one. So we can add a nice negate node. So I'm going to grab this one, which was the X, negate it, and then push it in here. And there you go. So this one is shifted to the left and this one to the right. And add another node in here and negate the Y and pass it in there. And there you go. So now this one is going down, this one is going up. So over here we have the left and down, over here the right and up. So now we simply make another add and add this one onto this one. So over here you can see we have our 4 sides. Then we pass this onto the clamp, and there you go, and everything else is the same. And yep, just like that, you can see our very nice outline. It's going left, right, up, down, and there you go, it looks very nice. Let's see it running. And yep, there's our nice outline effect. And over here in the inspector, we can simply modify the thickness. There you go, it looks very nice. And we can also easily modify the color. So just like this, we have our nice complete outline. Now here in shader graph, you can see that we did it by shifting the left, right, up and down. So for most scenarios, this works perfect. But in here, if we play around with a massive thickness, so as we increase, and there you go, and look at the sword in there. So when it's way too big, you can see the effect kind of break down. So if you need to have very big outlines, then one thing you could do would be to add 4 more outlines for each of the diagonal positions. So 1 up right, and down right. Doing that would help this effect look great even on very large outlines. But for most cases, again, this works perfect. Here it is with the character having a very nice outline, and it's all nicely animated. And with a nice blue effect and an AGR color, we have this very nice outline. Now finally, just for fun, we can still add some more stuff onto this effect. Okay, so here I added a new section. You can see the final effect with two colors constantly moving. And the way it works is basically by using this noise. And the noise is being shifted on the tiling and offset. And it's being shifted based on a time node. So there is a time multiplied by a certain factor. Then we apply it onto the G, which applies onto the Y on the offset and makes the gradient noise move up. So then we take one of those and multiply it by the normal outline color. And then we take another one, we invert that, and we multiply by a secondary color. Then we add both of them, so here we have green and blue. And then finally we take all of this, we multiply by our original outline, and we apply it to our sprite. So let's see the effect. And yep, there's our nice outline effect with two colors and constantly moving up, so we have a very nice gradient effect. So you can see how you can take the baseline of a simple outline and apply it onto various effects. As always, you can download the project files and utilities from unitycodemonkey.com. Subscribe to the channel for more Unity tutorials, post any questions you have in the comments, and I'll see you next time.